When we think of the Victorian era, we often imagine a world of rigid social rules, heavy fog, and strict morality. But in the world of Sherlock Holmes, the fog hides much more than just the streets of London. It hides secrets, disguises, and the complicated motivations of people from every level of society. Arthur Conan Doyle's collection, The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes, isn't a single novel with one continuous plot, but rather a series of snapshots that introduce us to the most famous consulting detective in history and his loyal companion, Dr. John Watson. To understand these stories, you have to understand the rhythm of 221B Baker Street. It is the home of a man who views the world as a series of puzzles to be solved through pure, cold logic, and a man who views the world through the lens of human experience and empathy. Watson is our guide. He's the one who tells the stories, providing the grounded, often bewildered perspective that makes Holmes's brilliance feel even more extraordinary. Together, they move from the grand, international scandals of royalty to the quiet, desperate crimes happening in the kitchens and nurseries of London. The stories often begin with a sense of high-stakes drama. Take, for example, the case of the King of Bohemia. This isn't a case involving a common thief, but a man who arrives at Baker Street in a heavy disguise, terrified. He is a king, and he is being blackmailed by a woman named Irene Adler. She holds a photograph that could destroy his upcoming marriage and his reputation across Europe. Holmes is tasked with retrieving this photo, and for the first time, we see that even the great Sherlock Holmes can be outmaneuvered. Irene Adler doesn't just evade him, she outwits him. She becomes the one woman he ever truly respects, not because of romance, but because she proved that intellect isn't reserved for men. As we move through the collection, the scale of the crimes shifts, but the complexity remains. We see Holmes dealing with the psychological manipulation of a man named James Windibank. This is a much more domestic, yet equally sinister, brand of deception. Windibank has been using a disguise to impersonate a man named Hosmer Angel to woo his own stepdaughter. He's created a phantom lover to keep her emotionally tied to a person who doesn't exist. Also, he can maintain control over her inheritance. It's a crime of the mind and the heart, showing how much damage a person can do when they use a persona to mask their true intentions. Holmes's skill often lies in his ability to see through the physical masks people wear. In one case, he encounters a man named Boone, a prisoner who seems quite ordinary. But with a simple application of a chemical sponge, Holmes washes away the theatrical makeup and reveals the man is actually Neville Stainclair. Stainclair had been living a double life as a professional beggar to hide his past as an actor from his children. It's a fascinating look at how people use disguise, not just to commit crimes, but to protect their social standing and their family's perception of them. The stories also touch on the more bizarre, almost surreal coincidences that occur in a crowded city. There is the mystery of a battered hat and a goose found by a man named Peterson, which leads into a much larger web of secrets. We see the tension between social duty and true love in the story of an American woman who suddenly flees her wedding to Lord Stainsymon. Holmes discovers she saw her former lover in the pews of the church, and the resolution of that case isn't about a crime, but about the messy, unpredictable nature of human affection. However, the collection isn't all light-hearted intrigue. As the stories progress, the shadows grow longer. We see the case of the beryl coronet, where a banker is caught in a web of high-stakes deception involving a valuable piece of jewelry. This leads into the much darker and more dangerous mystery of the copper beeches. Here, the stakes are life and death. A young woman named Violet Hunter takes a job at the Rucastle estate, only to find herself caught in a terrifying domestic trap. The climax of the copper beeches is one of the most intense moments in the collection. Holmes and Watson find themselves in a violent struggle at the Rucastle estate, facing off against a famished dog released by the antagonist, Mr. Rucastle, to keep people away from his secrets. The truth is revealed by the housekeeper, Mrs. Toller. Rucastle had been keeping Alice, his ward, imprisoned in a cellar to prevent her from marrying a man named Mr. Fowler. By keeping her captive, he hoped to secure her inheritance for himself. In the end, the criminals are defeated, the lovers escape to start a new life abroad, and Rucastle is left broken and disgraced. When we step back from these individual adventures, a clear pattern emerges. The stories are deeply concerned with the concept of identity and the masks people wear. In the Victorian world, your reputation was everything. If you lost your respectable image, you lost your place in society. This pressure drives much of the criminal behavior Holmes investigates. People use literal masks, like makeup and disguises, but they also use psychological masks, the phantom suitor, or the respectable gentleman, to hide their greed or their pasts. There is also a recurring theme of the clash between greed and love. Many of the villains in these stories are motivated by a desire for wealth or inheritance, and they are willing to destroy human connections to get it. Whether it's Windibank manipulating his stepdaughter or Rewcastle imprisoning a young woman, the motive is almost always the same: the predatory pursuit of money at the expense of someone else's agency. Holmes himself acts as a sort of corrective force in this society. He doesn't always work with the official police, who are often portrayed as being bogged down by bureaucracy or social class. Instead, Holmes operates in the grey areas. He provides a form of justice that is precise and logical, often helping those who are being exploited by the powerful or the deceptive. He looks past the social status of a person to see the facts of their actions. There is also a fascinating contrast between the trivial and the criminal. Holmes has a remarkable ability to distinguish between a bizarre coincidence, like a strange hat found in the street, and a calculated, purposeful crime. This ability to filter through the noise of the world is what makes him so effective. He sees the signal in the static. As we reflect on these adventures, we see the duality of crimes presented by Doyle. On one hand, there are the grand, sweeping conspiracies that threaten kings and empires. On the other, there are the quiet, desperate, and often sordid acts of greed that happen behind closed doors in respectable homes. The stories suggest that whether a crime is a matter of international politics or a domestic struggle over an inheritance, the underlying human impulses, greed, fear, love, and the desire for self-preservation remain exactly the same. Through Watson's eyes, we don't just see a detective solving puzzles. We see a window into a world where the truth is rarely what it seems on the surface, and where the most important clues are often found in the smallest, most overlooked details. The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes remind us that while people may change their names, their faces, and their social standing, the motives that drive them are remarkably constant.